There's only one change to the Kilkenny team this week, and that's Wally Walsh. He's out of contention. Billy Ryan comes in. And the thing that stands out therefore for the Kilkenny attack is that you have Adrian Mullen, Billy Ryan named at centre forward, and Bill Sheehan all in the one attack. So that's a lot of younger players that aren't experienced at this level, especially against a team as hardened as Galway. So that's the first thing that stands out. Just the main things also then from their bench is that you've Joey Holden, Killian Buckley and James Maher all in contention again. So their team is coming closer and closer to full strength all the time. On the Galway side, Johnny Cohen, Niall Burke and Conor Cooney, they've all been dropped in favour of Johnny Glynn, John Hanbury and Adrian Toohey, who's gone in wing forward. So the past couple of years we've seen him in corner back or man marking some sort of forward, some dangerous speedy forward. He's now on the forward, so that's kind of very interesting from the outside looking in. What is it that Micheál Donoghue is trying to inject into the team? Is it a bit of pace into the half forward line? Obviously with Johnny Glynn, it's all about putting Scud missiles on top of him. And Paraic Walsh is named centre back for Kilkenny. So at the moment, just based on how the programmes are named, that's Johnny Glynn up against Paraic Walsh. And in the past couple of years when Paraic Walsh has been full back, we know he's an unbelievable player, especially further out the field. But it's when it's high ball against big men, and think of Liam Rush and Conor Cooney last season. Maybe that's one area where he might have a small bit of trouble. Anyone's going to have trouble against Johnny Glynn. The only thing is in full back you kind of have to mind the square. You can't go bald headed out for every high ball. So at least from centre back he knows that if he decides to attack a high ball and to climb a ladder to get over Johnny Glynn, at least there's going to be someone to sweep behind him, whether that's a wing back, a full back, whatever it is there. So there is that. A matchup that I'm really looking forward to has to be Paul Murphy against Conor Whelan. It's the one I'd expect to happen because they size up physically pretty well with each other. Conor Whelan has been pretty much the only forward that Galway have been able to count on this championship season without Joe Canning, and one of the questions is, are they going to step up in his absence? The Cauldron in Nowlan Park isn't the place normally for teams that don't have leaders, so it'll be very interesting to see if that happens. TJ Reid, he's named at number 12, but he'll probably end up playing centre forward. He often does, float in and out. Who's going to mark him? Paraic Fanning, I'd imagine, will be the guy to go over to him. I would say Grode McInerney would probably want to hold the centre, but if TJ Reid, if he's centre forward, I think Mannion will just be a man marking job. Grode McInerney will go to the wing and he'll try and sweep back as best as he can from there. So those are the main things with the Kilkenny team, which starts out as Darren Brennan still in goals, Paul Murphy, Hugh Lawler, Tommy Walsh, half back line of Conor Fogarty, Paraic Walsh and Paddy Deegan, a very strong half back line. Alan Murphy and Richie Lahey's pace in their midfield, Adrian Mullen, Billy Ryan, TJ Reid, and a full forward line of Bill Sheehan, Colin Fennelly and Ger Aylward. Then the Galway team, Colin Callan, John Hanbury, Dahi Burke, Aidan Hart, Paraic, Mannion, Grode, McInerney at 6, and Joseph Cooney has gone back to wing back as well. He did that last year in the replay in Thurles, so we know he can be effective back there and he'll want to get his form up as quickly as possible. Sean Loftus in midfield with Davy Burke, then Cathal Mannion, Jonathan Glynn, Adrian Toohey, and a full forward line of Conor Whelan, Jason Flynn and Brian Kincannon. Limerick against Clare at the Gaelic grounds as well. Diarmuid Burns is back in the team, and rather than him coming in for Paddy O'Loughlin, who jumped up into his position last week, Diarmuid Burns is in instead of Dan Morrissey. And this is a couple of games in a row now where John Kiely has decided, I'm going to take some of my main men and I'm going to show you that you're not undroppable. Maybe he's putting out a signal, maybe he's basically picking the team on form. But the first day Diarmuid Burns was on the bench, and then you had O'Donovan dropped as well. And now you have Dan Morrissey, who was one of the mainstays of last year. And it's just interesting to see why he's doing that, because it's not as if Diarmuid Burns would have had time to prove himself. They played Waterford last Sunday, so I'm not sure what he would have done in the meantime to earn a recall. Perhaps there's some sort of a knock with Dan Morrissey. You just wouldn't be 100% sure. But these are key men from 2018, so I suppose it sends out a signal to the rest of them that shape up or shape out. Maybe not, though. Maybe we're reading too much into it. The Clare team, Gerald Gann told me this week that too much praise has been given to the team and they haven't backed it up. Well, here's a perfect chance, because they can knock out the All-Ireland champions. Just the way things have fallen, the points at the moment, the head-to-head scenario, this is assuming Cork beat Waterford, that Limerick will be gone. It's incredible to think that Davy Fitzgerald, the wing back, he's the only person to be given the axe after that game against Tipperary, because the team overall, it was a terrible display, it was stink. So like, you wonder, is there no confidence in the wider panel? John Kiely has shown a willingness to get rid of or to drop players if they haven't performed. Donald O'Connor and Jerry O'Connor and Donald Maloney, the fact that they're only dropping one guy, albeit Conor Cleary was the obvious one to come in. When he came in against Tipperary, he was very good, but the confidence has to be low with this team as well. So I just think it's interesting that they haven't mixed it up a little bit more. Like, Colin Galvin was marked out of it by Michael Breen last week. He really didn't get into the game. Tony Kelly marked out of it by Brendan Maher, Shane O'Donnell by Cathal Barrett, and John Conlon's shooting was awry. So John Conlon continues in full forward, even though he didn't have a good day with his shooting. So I just thought they would have changed a little bit more. But just to run through the teams then: Nicky Quaid in goals for Limerick, Sean Finn, Mike Casey, Richie English, Diarmuid Burns, Declan Hannon, Paddy O'Loughlin, Keane Lynch and William O'Donoghue, who keeps his place after a good performance last week. Half forward line of Grode Hegarty, be looking for more the same from him. Kyle Hayes, Tom Morrissey, and the top line is Aaron Gallant, Graham Mulcahy and Peter Casey. Clare then: Donald Toohey in goals, Patrick O'Connor, David McInerney and Shane Amori. The half-back line of Cathal Malone, Jack Brown and Conor Cleary, Shane Golden and Colin Galvin. Half-forward line of Peter Duggan, Tony Kelly, Dermot Ryan, and an inside line of Shane O'Donnell, John Conlon and Podge Collins. Wexford against Carlow. Aidan Nolan is the only one to drop out of the team here for Wexford. He's been replaced by Paul Morris. So in the past, Paul Morris has been a very strong free taker for Wexford. I suppose like pretty much any free taker in the game. The odd day it hasn't gone perfectly for him from the ground, but he's in the team, and it's a notable one too, because the frees just really didn't work against Galway. Lee Chin missed the number. Paraic Fanning hit a few from his own 45 more or less, and they were crazy wides. So they've got two draws so far. They probably feel like they should have a couple of wins. Now, Dublin did outplay them for a lot of the game, but it was just Wexford's ability to punish mistakes and get a couple of goals that put them in a winning position. So there's more pace in the team as ever. Lee Chin's in there, Rory O'Connor's in there, Morris is able to carry the ball, Liam McGovern we know is pacey as well. You'd imagine the work rate will upset Carlow, you'd imagine the pace will upset Carlow, and the fact that any one of their players from front to back, as soon as Wexford are in position, they can just bomb on forward. And we see Matt O'Hanlon do it the whole time. He's named at 6. For Carlow, they'll be looking to tighten up the defence. Like, they've a minus 32 scoring difference after 3 games, so that suggests they're being well beaten overall. They want to tighten that up. They went route 1 against Dublin an awful lot, and once Dublin went a man down, Shane Barrett got sent off before half time. They tried to work the ball around a little bit more, but they didn't quite manage it. Now, you put a lot of that down to the wind as well, because it was chronic and spoiled any chance of that being a good game. In honesty, it was a poor enough spectacle. Just to go through the teams then: Paraic Fanning in goals for Wexford, Damien Reck, Liam Ryan, Simon Donoghue. Half-back line of Paddy Foley, Matt O'Hanlon and Sean Murphy. Midfield is Kevin Foley, who will play sweeper, well he normally does, and Diarmuid O'Keefe. Then a half-forward line which is lots of pace in Rory O'Connor, Paul Morris, Liam McGovern, Cathal Dunbar, Lee Chin and Conor MacDonald inside. For Carlow, Brian Tracy's in goals, Kevin MacDonald, Paul Doyle, Michael Doyle. Half-forward line of Owen Nolan, David English and Richard Cody, Jack Kavanagh and Sean Whelan in midfield. John M. Nolan, Marty Kavanagh and Edward Byrne is wing forward, and then James Doyle, Ted Joyce and Chris Nolan. Waterford have absolutely rung the changes for their final group game against Cork. Paraic Fanning, why wouldn't he? I mean, so many of the players let him down against Limerick last week, and he got a huge amount of criticism this week. And I sometimes wonder, you know, on the hurling show, he got fairly filleted, I have to say, and there was talk of like him being an uninspiring character and that. And it is his first year. Derek McGrath took a few tankings in his first year, and we saw what he built. And of course, it can't all be on Paraic Fanning. We don't know if he's an inspiring character or not inside the dressing room. Yeah, the performance has been terrible, and I'm sure he'll hold his hands up for that. But as a person, I suppose you can't be going in too hard on him. And I sometimes reflect on the show we did this week, and did we give him enough balance? Because I mean, I done a video earlier in the week about Austin Gleeson. He was kind of held up and highlighted as being very poor against Limerick, and I wondered, was that the right thing or not? And I wonder the same about Paraic Fanning. Yeah, 100% unacceptable performances, and he'll take his share of the blame. But I suppose he's still a human as well with a family, so you can't necessarily just be completely criticising him and not getting the flip side. I mean, they did get to a league final. They were very poor in it, and the flip side is, this is kind of as I remember Davy Fitzgerald, it was after a Waterford Crystal game in 2014, he was asked about TJ Ryan, who's then Limerick manager, complaining about, I don't know, clear players, kind of getting in opposition with third man tackles, sneaky little third man tackles. And David Fitzgerald's answer was, this is the big leagues now, TJ. And maybe this is the big leagues, but I suppose there's a balance to be found as well in terms of criticism, of which Fanning would have got a lot this week. The Waterford team, he's completely rung the changes. The good news, first of all, for Waterford is 7 of the team that won the Munster and All-Ireland Under 21 in 2016, they're starting here. The flip side is Austin Gleeson's not in it. You would think on form he would get on any team in Ireland. Like, he's been hurler of the year already. We know the talent, the level he can get to. He was poor last week. If you look at the house being cleared, Stephen O'Keefe is gone. Noel Connors is gone. Dara Fives, Kevin Moran, Ozzy Gleeson, as I said, Park Mahoney suspended. He could have been dropped too. Maura Shanahan is out. So that's 6 All-Stars gone. And as Tomás McCarthy, the Waterford journalist, put online, there's only 3 survivors from the 2017 All-Ireland final team. And of course, they haven't won a game since the All-Ireland semi-final in 2017. So he's gone for all pace. There's a couple of debutants in Billy Nowlan and Dara Lyons at cornerback. Then Shane McNulty's back in alongside Conor Gleeson, Brian O'Halloran, Shane Bennett and Peter Hogan. So it is a team of pace, and we know that that's what Cork are going to bring. It should be a team of energy. They'll probably flood the middle. But definitely rung the changes. And to be fair, Paraic Fanning has nothing to lose, because even though the main men have done an awful lot for Waterford over the years, they haven't done anything for him this year. The Cork team, it's more or less business as usual since the Limerick game, which was a fantastic win. Not too many would have seen it coming, especially when Limerick got that goal in the first half. Alan Cadigan, he starts for the first time since August 2017, came on for Lahan early when Lahan got injured and was absolutely exceptional. Lahan is back on the bench, very, very pacey bench. Robbie O'Flynn, Shane Kingston and Conor Lahan especially. Jamie Coughlin isn't slow. Declan Dalton then is the more physical option if they want to bring in. If you look at that Cork team, Bill Cooper, Dara Fitzgibbon are in midfield, but in the half-forward line you've Daniel Carney and Luke Meade, so they're essentially going to be like everyone else, I suppose, flooding the midfield. That's kind of 4 midfielders there. So just going through the 2 teams, Anthony Nash is in goal for Cork. Sean O'Donoghue, Owen Cadigan and Niall O'Leary are the full back line. Playing in between the 45 and 65 are Robert Downey, Mark Ellis and Mark Coleman. Bill Cooper and Dara Fitzgibbon midfield. Daniel Carney, Seamus Harnedy and Luke Meade were 10 to 12, and then Alan Cadigan, Patrick Horgan and Aidan Walsh. Waterford's team is Billy Nowlan in goals, Shane McNulty, Conor Prunty and Dara Lyons. Callum Lyons moves out to the half back line alongside Tyke de Burka and Conor Gleeson. Jamie Byrne and Mikey Carney midfield. Half forward line of Shane Bennett, Brian O'Halloran, Jack Prendergast, and the top line is Tommy Ryan, Stephen Bennett and Peter Hogan. The Kerry against Laois game in the Joe McDonagh Cup, that's on GA now today at 3 o'clock Saturday. The Kerry team is John B. O'Halloran, James O'Connor, Brian Murphy and Sean Weir. A half-back line of Evan Murphy, Patrick Kelly and Daniel Collins. Dan Goggin and Tomás O'Connor are in midfield. Michael O'Leary, Shane Conway and Jack Goulding in the half-forward line, and the Padraig Boyle, Michael Boyle and Colm Harty there wearing 13 to 15. Shane Conway scored 13 points against Westmeath. No other player scored more than a point, so you'd have to wonder, are they very, very reliant on the UCC man? Jordan Conway came on and scored 3 points that last day against Westmeath, and he probably feels a little bit hard done by to not start this game. For Laois, they're unbeaten so far in the Joe McDonagh, so Eddie Brennan's going to be very happy with that. Made just one change from the team against Antrim. That's Aaron Dunphy. He's drafted into the team. Lee Clear drops out. There's a bit of rejigging going on with Chad Wire going midfield and Jack Kelly into the back line. So that Laois team is Enda Rowland, Joe Phelan, Matthew Whelan, Donica Hartnett, Jack Kelly, Ryan Mullaney and Padraig Delaney. Midfield is John Lennon and Chad Dwyer. A half forward line of Aaron Dunphy, Willie Dunphy and Paddy Purcell. And then Mark Kavanagh, Ian Lyons and Ross King, a big threat in the corner. Antrim against Westmeath. Antrim haven't released their team just yet, so a quick look at Westmeath. It's Conor Lynch, Dara Egerton, Tommy Doyle and Gary Greville. Half back line, Liam Varley, Angus Clark, Paul Greville, Shane Clavin and John Gilligan. Midfield 10 to 12 are Cormac Boyle, Killian Doyle and Joey Boyle. And then Robbie Greville, Derek McNicholas and Alan Devine lead the attack inside. I would have to say about Antrim, who I saw last week against Offaly in Tullamore where they got the win. Very, very lively team with an awful lot of pace. And the fact that they didn't panic when they went down to 14 men after just 9 minutes. Fullback Martin Burke was sent off. There was a bit of a melee and his hurley definitely, it looked to catch Oisin Kelly in the face. He got sent off. But when they conceded goals as well to Joe Bergen and Oisin Kelly in the second half, they didn't panic, got scores back straight away. They have an awful lot of pace in their team. Keelan Malloy, especially in the half forward line, an awful lot of pace. Kitog and Kieran Clark inside. He scored 3 points. Very, very elusive, always finding space. He set up Malloy for one of his goals with a lovely collecting the ball outside, stick pass inside. Really, really impressive. We know about Neil McManus, gets on the ball an awful lot, generally does the right thing with it, and a really, really good free taker. I thought it was very interesting. There was a double substitution from Neil Pedden just before half time. They weren't doing particularly badly at all. It was a tight game. There was 7 minutes of injury time, and maybe he knew that, but he decided, I've only 14 men on the field and I need every one of them contributing. So he brought on 2 substitutes, one of whom was James McNaughton, who managed to get 2 points before the end of injury time in the first half and got 4 overall. So he made a massive impression. Another guy that stood out to me at times as well, Nigel Elliott, he scored a goal at the end. It was a counter-attack move from Antrim, and they just showed the pace that Offaly just didn't have. So I think that summed it up for me. So they're a strong enough team, and it's a hard one to call. Then a final word on Offaly, who, if Westmeath and Kerry both win in the Joe McDonagh, they will go down to the Christy Ring Cup, which would be absolutely disastrous and very humiliating for a county that between the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s did build up a tradition where they had none before that. But one thing I'd have to say is they really do have to look at the disciplinary issue, because time after time they're getting red cards. Now, I mentioned Antrim got a red card in the first half. It was advantage Offaly, and it was a tight game, and then early enough in the second half, Conor Mahon gets red carded for a shoulder into the head of the wing back for Antrim, and it was just so unnecessary, and it gave the impetus back to Antrim, who went on and went 8 points ahead. Now the plus point for Offaly is they brought it back to 2 when it looked like it was game over, so they did show a bit of heart. But I just wonder what's going on between the ears when they're constantly getting red cards. It's year after year after year, game after game. Even think of Wexford, the Wexford game in the Leinster Championship last year, 3 lads red carded. I mean, and this is just happening time and time again. And it's often for dirty strokes, it's often for late hits. You see it in Leinster club action as well when their champions come out. 3 of the last 4 years, they've lost. When they've lost, they've had players sent off as well. So I think it's something that they need to be reflective of. I think from the top down, they need to say to the players, why are we having these disciplinary issues? Because, I mean, you've gone from Leinster Championship down to Joe McDonagh, and you're on the way to Christy Ring as well. You need to start looking inside and not always blaming outside. And I just think that disciplinary thing is a huge one.